Welcome, Star Wars fans, to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, a show where we debate takes so hot that they'd melt a planet with twin suns. My name's Brody, and I'll be hosting this episode with my co-hosts Amanda and Christian as we attempt to discover what story is truly the best from a galaxy far, far away. On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing ranks and hot takes from Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. By the end of this episode, we'll have a definitive answer on where this piece of Star Wars content ranks amongst the rest. Now, with that said, let's get this show started. Amanda, I'm going to give you a hard task here because there's a lot going on in this movie, but can you surmise it for our audience? What's it all about?
Super short and brief. Somehow Emperor Palpatine has returned.
Somehow.
And threatens the fate of the galaxy with a massive fleet of star destroyers. Finn and Poe lead the resistance to put a stop to the First Order, while Rey must face her ultimate battle against Kylo Ren. That's all it is.
The dead speak.
The dead speak.
On paper, it sounds so good and so interesting.
Especially where we left off with The Last Jedi. You're like, there's so many ways it could go. Like,
That's...
Go ahead, Christian.
Well,
your sigh.
well, I just noticed. Who ranked it just as low as I did?
I did.
Amanda did.
Nice.
Yeah, we had the
Whoa.
same
You both gave it a
exact
58%.
ranking. Wow.
I think because of, well, a lot of things, but my biggest thing, and I'll say this, it just undoes most everything what Last Jedi did, or it was afraid to take on that next step, and it was like, let's just make a sequel to Force Awakens, and we'll just... The Skywalker lightsaber was broken in Last Jedi, refused back together in Rise of Skywalker. Kylo Ren's helmet was shattered and refused back together. And I think that sums up a lot of what happened with this film, even though the strong point for this film for me was just the lore, the immersive universe. Like it throws a lot in there, a lot of fan service. Everything else, I think, was not handled very well at all. The story,
I think, is definitely the
terrible.
weakest point, and it's something that we all agree on. That I think my experience watching this movie for the first time was I had like whiplash, because it was like, you start here, and then, okay, we all need to go here. Now we just got here, we need to go to this place, but this person's gone, so you have to go get that person, and then we have to go here. And it just was too, like, the pacing was so messed up.
And Ray, I need to tell you something. But I'm never going to tell you.
But just kidding. Yeah.
Psych.
Like, do you even remember that Rey goes to Octo to see Luke? Like, just to be like, yeah, I'm going to quit with you. And he's like, nah, you can't do that. Here's my X-Wing. And she's like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a 2-minute scene.
It's
And
like,
I was like, why did we have to go there
Where
again?
was this? You're willing to help now.
And it also feels kind of weird that he lifts the X-Wing out of the water for her, where that was like, obviously Yoda did that for Luke, but you would have liked to see. I mean, I guess it's the same thing.
It's him giving like his blessing for her to like
Passing
use
the
it.
baton.
But it just feels so not even forced, just almost like corny.
Yeah, like she had to go all the way over there so they could get that reference in.
Yeah, it just like, whereas in The Empire Strikes Back, it feels very like, it's like, wow, there's a lot of gravity to it. Whereas here, it just doesn't work. And you kind of cringe at that, but...
The story was just hard to believe.
Yeah,
watching the story here.
Yeah, because like, okay, like I said in my quick summary, somehow Palpatine has returned is how it's introduced by Poe, which is kind of in character for Poe, like just to like deliver it like as the facts like that. But that's also how all of us felt. We're like, okay, like how, why, how long?
I know.
And there was no
Palpatine's back.
inkling of it. Like, I would have loved just like the hint of it being possible in any of the other films.
And I love how they try to like just tie it in by explain. Like they're like, oh, the prequel fans are gonna love this. How did he come back? The dark side.
Well, then you see all the Snoke like clones. They're like, oh, I guess Snoke was important, or like maybe he wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what. I give this story 1.8 stars out of 5, and that is by far the highest of this group.
Yeah.
That says something. Story's rough, and it really is unfortunate because on paper, I love the outline of this movie. Like, Palpatine's back. He's been orchestrating everything.
That's believable. I can believe
There's
it.
clones. Rey is a Palpatine, and that ties into so much outside of this. So you talked about the lore. Like, so wait, she's part Grogu. She's part other Jedi. She's part Palpatine. Like, there is a lot in her that, okay, her being a Mary Sue makes a lot more sense to me now. And they didn't know she was a clone at the time. But then you look back at, like, The Last Jedi, where she falls into that pool and she snaps and she sees a million of herself. And there's so much there. They're like, wow, this is really cool. But so much of it, like, this is, it's weird because while the story hurts so much, when you talk about the lore, this is the most Star Warsy movie ever.
I feel like we say that every episode.
No, but this one, it's
catering
this one
to
is Star Wars. That's
It's
all.
like-
It's like, what do you love about Star Wars? We're gonna just throw all of the. We're not gonna pepper it in.
let's-
We're gonna dump the whole thing. Of
That's our
pepper on it.
movie. We're
Yeah.
just gonna give you some elements of things that have been hinted at or talked before.
Like the whole dagger thing.
And she lined that up perfectly.
Perfect. We
with the
landed
Death
in the
Star.
perfect spot for her to just be like, oh, yeah, it is right there. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't have to walk around, 3 days to find the
Yeah.
right thing. She was just like, oh, wait, it does go like this.
Yeah.
Like, how did it fall there? I thought it exploded. What parts of it were around to fall into the atmosphere? And who was standing there was like, okay, I'm going to make this dagger, and I wanted to point to this part that's in a very specific spot in that wreckage that's extremely hard to get to and might still adjust over time.
And
to
yeah,
the
there's-
books.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of character development. It's the opposite of Force Awakens, which is weird because JJ did that film as well, where you just really instinctively buy into the relationships. Whereas this one, what's Poe's, I don't want to say ex-girlfriend, but it seems
Sorry?
like it, yeah, there's
yeah.
comes out of nowhere. Sorry,
She
Bliss.
had the
like, why do
most
we-
cringe lines too in this film. Like,
Yeah, and
she's like, oh, I had to write it down when I watched
and what's
it.
the actress that plays her name? I've seen her in other things, and she's fantastic.
No
so-
shade to her.
Yeah.
But the lines like,
Carrie
Russell?
Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
not
No,
that you care,
Not that
but I think you're okay.
yeah,
And then Ray's like,
I can't.
I care. And I was like, what the heck?
and you
are
only
we
see her
doing here?
eyes. I was
Hey.
like, what's the point of bringing in these new characters?
She hates Poe,
Yeah.
and then she's like, oh, but here's my captain's medallion, and like.
But we wouldn't have got Babu Frick without her, and we think we can all agree he's
We do love Babu.
We love Babu Frick, right, Christian?
I mean, I don't hate him, but it was enough. It was just one of those things where I was like, okay, this is weird.
fun, Star Wars
sure,
weird
it's funny.
shit. Yeah.
Sure.
I liked him. I
Okay.
liked the hairdryer droid,
Mhm.
the one that was like super
Yeah.
anxious and
Dio.
Yeah,
I thought C-3PO was corny in this movie.
Oh,
This was his
This
best-
was his best film
ever.
Arguably, he was one of the best characters of this film.
Nah.
Whoa, one of the best. That's like maybe because there weren't many good ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly my point.
But the ones that were good were really good. I still liked Rey.
Really.
While the writing was not great for her, I appreciate it. Kylo always shines in any movie he's in.
Yeah.
I think
And-
he was the strongest character to emerge from this sequel
So-
trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
You two gave this movie 58%. I gave it a 72, which again, like C- for me, because the things I love about this movie, I really, really love. I love the scene where Ben, at this point, gets closure with Han.
That is a moving scene. I will not take away from that.
Yeah, that scene brings me to tears.
Oh, it does hurt my heart to see that. But you see him come back. You see him throw the lightsaber. It's amazing. I love the end.
I love the end too. Okay, yes. For all of the flaws that there are in this film that I'm not afraid to shy away from, when I did first see this movie and I got home from it, like just the first impression was like I cried and I was like, I liked it. I think I liked it. And I think it's because the end of the film has such a great emotional finale. Like
Yeah.
seeing the three of them all reunite and hug it out, that just like how Return of the Jedi leaves on that beautiful high note and celebration. That was like the lasting emotion that I left the
Yeah.
theater with. And thank God that that was what it was.
Yeah, I think part of that for me was like I had to acknowledge the music. The soundtrack was still really like
Yeah.
that's how I came away from the theater the first time watching it. I just couldn't resist, but like, man, it was happy, sad.
Yeah.
Star Wars is over again.
I feel like if you would have given this to a different director, like an example could be like a Gareth Edwards, I feel like that final battle sequence wouldn't feel as corny.
Yeah.
Like you see all the ships everywhere come out and you're like, okay, whatever. And then they're all riding space horses and you're like, well, wouldn't the ship just need to like kind of tilt and gravity does the job of I mean, there's a lot of things like that I'm like, okay, that's fine. It feels kind of whatever. And oh, red stormtroopers now just for toys. I get it. Like, that's fine.
But like the ending with Ben showing up to help Rey at the end is also just fantastic. I love that. I even was pro kiss. I know everyone's shocked.
I liked it too.
Everyone is like, how could they kiss? But
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't even, as much as I say that The Last Jedi is the horniest Star Wars film, it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to be with you forever. It was that connection, that true dyad in the Force, that they had accomplished something that didn't feel possible together. And you get that one smile out of Ben, and then he dies.
Yeah, that one smile, which it did. I was like, oh, that's different. He's smiling. But
He looks so happy.
I'll say like a kiss on paper. I was like, I can believe that, but just the way it was on screen, that was a moment in the theater. I was like, that just felt awkward.
How was like
And then
dead,
dead,
alive, dead.
Yeah, I was like, what?
I agree that
What?
the execution of it felt a little clunky. That said, I don't mind them kissing. I know that people had a big problem with it, and I'm like,
Star Wars has always been romantic.
but think
Yeah.
about it like this. You've
big
got this
love
connection
story.
with someone. It's really weird. You're both kind of these big misfits. You really connect with each other for some reason. You realize this person's about to die. You were dead, and
They saved you.
They saved you by
Turning to the light. What Luke could not do.
It's a very human.
Wait, what?
What
response.
Anakin could not do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
what Anakin could not do
Anakin
is save
could
the
not do.
one that he loved. So what Ben accomplishes is the perfect ending for his character. I do love
Absolutely.
it.
And it makes sense that he dies.
Yes.
Like
As much as I
it's yeah, and like I love.
want more of him,
Yeah.
but
I
don't
think
think Adam
that's a
Driver's
great
coming
character.
back.
I think Kylo Ren was done well, right? The best of this sequel trilogy, but it makes sense that he dies. Leave him dead.
yeah.
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 I'll tell you this. I think, as I've said before, the problem with these sequels is they're overly ambitious. And I wish we would have gotten this in anthology films or its own TV show or something where you flesh it all out. Because now that's what Disney's doing. They're doing The Mandalorian. They're doing all these things to say, okay, well, there's a lot of gaps here. And similar to what happened with the prequels, we're going to just flesh out the sequels.
But it
through
worked
TV
really well
shows.
for the prequels because once I watched the Clone Wars, which is amazing, it also made me appreciate the prequels that much more because I had all of that extra context and story behind all of those characters that made me more connected to them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, I feel the connection between Rey and Ben, and I think we can all agree that the show writers knew that it was their story to be told and everything else was secondary, which is what also sucks so much about this. Like, whether you loved or hated Rose in the last one, to see her just get like, oh, I want to help, and she's like, just kidding, I'm going to stay behind. It's like cringe. It's like really, especially when you know the backlash that was happening behind her. It is so disgusting and unfair how they had to cater to the fans in that way.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Rose, Maz Kanata, like that fell
Disappointing.
off the train.
Yeah.
Finn fell off. Like I was like, come on, we wanted.
Like, Finn being force sensitive is amazing. Is such a brilliant plot device to introduce in that last one. But the fact that they don't ever even get it out, or you don't see him use the force in any way, is so disrespectful, in my opinion.
You know,
You give so much story to these other characters,
Yeah.
and then you just tease this one.
And on like the flip side, there's things that are like really cool, like Rey being trained by Leia.
Yeah.
I loved, and I loved this. I loved the montage of seeing her go through the forest and moving rocks, and then getting that flashback of Leia being trained by Luke.
Yep.
I loved all of that.
That was great.
Yeah, and that's the problem with this movie. When you look at it through a critical lens, it's obviously not good. And I hated how Palpatine was, in the end, looked like this 1980s just bad
Marionette
guy.
puppet?
Yeah, where it's like, whatever, like, he's trying.
Boy.
I liked the beginning with him, but toward the end, the
cool.
closer
Cool
we got
voice.
to the end there,
Ian
like,
McDermott.
they just ripped off Avengers Endgames. I am inevitable, and I am Iron Man. Works for that movie. This one, I am all of the Sith, and I am all the Jedi. Whatever. And she like deflects, does the ultimate Jedi thing, and defends herself, and lets him kill himself. Whatever. I personally know how cartoony this sounds and why a lot of people don't like this, but I am of the camp. I think it would have been really cool to see all of the Force ghosts behind Rey that were helping her, and that they were physically helping her. But if you
that would tie it all together.
Tie everything. Tie like all of these people, this one resounding screw you, Palpy. All these people, like Mace is there, Ahsoka's there, Anakin's there, Kanan, all these people he's hurt. And then Palpatine's biggest moment of like triumph of coming back from the dead is ruined because of his own actions. And to be able to visibly see that, it wouldn't have saved the movie. But it would have been really really cool to tie it all together in the end. And they still did it. They still brought them back with their voices, but to be able to see it, it would have really felt like
I felt like
justice.
this movie didn't do Anakin justice. Like, I felt like we deserved Force Ghost Anakin, especially like on Tatooine or like in any of those scenes. I think Anakin's story is so important to Ben fulfilling his arc, and is just sort of not
kind of brushed off.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, if I remember, like fans still, Disney wasn't sure because a lot of fans by the time of Force Awakens, they didn't want to see Hayden Christensen at all. There was still a hate.
I can't believe that.
I know. And then like people hate the sequels and they're like, bring back Hayden, please. Like it's whatever. Like fans are everywhere.
I would say, yes, there were elements of the movie that I like, that I enjoy, or it's cool fan service. But it was just in the context of everything, it's clear. Ryan Johnson and J.J. Abrams were not on the same team. They wanted to make their own things.
Which is weird because J.J. Abrams produced The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And I have heard, and I will need to fact check this, I heard that The Last Jedi was written before The Force Awakens.
I've heard that as well.
And J.J. signed off on it. So
and it's like, I just don't believe it was just like two different visions. And then JJ's like trying to literally fuse it back together, retcon or whatever. And that's how it comes off to me. But, or like another missed opportunity. Knights of Ren.
Yes.
Like, what the heck? You tease us something cool and you don't give it to us. You could have had Ben kill off the Knights of Ren in a much better way, not just breeze over and make them look like pushovers.
Yeah, like we still don't even know who they are.
Yeah, you got to buy the book for that.
Yeah, I know.
And like, just missed opportunities there, and it just showed the cards of we really didn't have this end in mind, and sure, it's gonna settle with some time, and I think that's gonna be the stamp, a big stamp on this sequel trilogy. But like, that's the critical lens of me on this, but I still like enjoy watching it, like parts of it. Like it's fast paced, it's entertaining. It's, again, like it said, it brings in these cool elements, Leia training Rey and all these other like cool elements, but it's not that good of a unavoidable movie to really critique this and rank this low.
Right.
Especially for the story and the characters. We have to rank that low.
Yeah. Well, none of these. I mean, it's funny. Like it gets better, or from worse to better. Like the story is ranked really low. Characters are low. I mean, the technical aspects we all praised because obviously
It looks
visually
good, yeah.
looks
Yeah.
good. Music. John Williams was a part of it.
Yeah.
There you go.
But also like hearing the finale
Yeah, to
of
cap
it, it's
off.
just so much more emotional. You
Yep.
could feel the emotion in the music.
In the immersive universe, you have to give that a decent score because that's all this movie is.
Yeah.
When totaling all of these things out, the movie does end up at a 62.67%, which I do believe is the lowest of any of
Even
the
below Phantom Menace?
I believe
I
so.
think
We're going to
just
pull that up.
below.
Yeah,
Wow.
pull that up at the end here and find out exactly where everything ranks, but it's not high. And it makes sense. I mean, the Phantom Menace at the end of the day does tell a much more cohesive story and paces
Yeah.
tremendously so. It's so much better than what we see here, which is unfortunate because I think this movie had a lot of potential.
And there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Like, and that's very apparent
Yep.
when you hear about what happened in the sign off of the script and how it had to go through changes and different directors, and knowing that that Adam Driver went to record lines in his closet like a week and a half before the film premiered everywhere so they could add in that she was Palpatine's daughter, just makes you cringe. Like the whole reason
Granddaughter.
they brought back the mask so it'd be easy that anyone could kind of fill in and you could just put Adam Driver's voice in wherever you needed it. And that just feels like cheating.
You made me remember, like, we didn't even, like, I love Ian McDermott. I love seeing the Emperor, but we didn't even need him. Like, you could have had Kylo Ren stepping into the void as that supreme leader.
Mhm.
Like they referred him to in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Picture an actual sequel to Last Jedi and what that could have been. I don't think of Rise of Skywalker. I think of Rise of Skywalker as a sequel to Force Awakens, and Last Jedi is like an anthology film on its own, trying to do ambitious different things.
Yep.
Taking risks. But yeah, it's one other thing that I guess I don't really want to get into that. The whole light speed jumping and all that. Like
if you have a problem with the hold on maneuver, then you better have a problem with that.
Then you better have a problem. I was fine with, both or whatever, but I know people were like, that was whatever. And I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like out of place more than anything. Like it's hard to go into detail with all the things that are wrong with this movie because we'd have a much longer podcast, but I agree. That's another thing I'm not even going to touch on.
But force healing though, like that was a cool element, expanding the universe.
Yes.
Like, and like the healing of that. Like,
okay,
that was
I'm
cool.
glad you brought that up. I want to talk about that a little bit more. So when Rey tries to kill Kylo on that on the Death Star ruins, it felt so out of character for her. And I didn't understand, like, Leia uses the last will of her life to distract him through the Force so Leia can stab him, Rey can stab him. Like, that doesn't add up to me. Like, that doesn't seem like what Rey was fighting for in the beginning. However, I do like that what makes Rey an interesting character is that she isn't just like morally good and happy and positive all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she acknowledges her fear and her anger and doesn't hide away from it, which makes her like a really good face of like whatever the next generation is. And we kind of see that when you tease like Sith Rey, which would have loved to see that more.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then would have also loved to see an actual saber staff and not this like dual-ended rotating one. That didn't even...
Nunchucks.
The functionality didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that does also remind me too, like force saber fighting. Like you're dueling when you're not even there and present.
Yeah.
Like I was like, wow, that's something completely
that was
new
cool.
and different,
cool.
and it's a further evolution of depicting the Force.
And I love how when she sends like Anakin's lightsaber over to him, and he pulls it out from behind his back, and he just shrugs himself like,
That's so Han.
Yeah.
like, all
That
right.
was a Han thing.
Writers like acknowledge, they're like, we don't know, just accept it.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm like, all right, you called it out, you broke the fourth wall.
I know I talked
buy
about
it.
the ABBA dub over in The Last Jedi, but there's also a holding out for a hero montage of Ben coming back to Exegol, and that also lives in my head rent free.
Nice. No, and I think another scene I do love when she goes back to Rey goes back to the Death Star and sees the wreckage, sees the dark version of herself, like ending again with Ben and Han. Like I just like that whole sequence.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
Yeah.
highlights of the movie. I don't know. It's also funny. Everyone that knows me knows I love Lord of the Rings, and I just think it's really funny that Dominic Monaghan, who plays Merry, is just
He's
kind of
in it.
shoehorned in there. Like which is fine. I mean, I remember seeing him on the cast, and I was so excited, and
It was like,
then his lines are some of the cringiest, like talking about Palpatine's back kind of thing, and you're like, oh, all right, that's fine. But anyway, well, this was a lot of fun. Puts us at 62.67%. I still enjoy this film. As I said, it's a C for me. It's not a great movie, but it's a great popcorn flick when you want to just turn your brain off, and you really have to turn your brain off, not think about everything else you saw before.
just want to have a fun time.
Yeah.
Have a fun time. That's what the
Have a
Yeah, just a-
festival.
yeah, have a festival on whatever planet that was. That was cool too. Loved all the. It was weird that they introduced Billy D.
colours.
Williams on there for whatever reason, but anyway, it was cool. With all that to be said, let's move into our next segment of the show, the hot takes segment.
Don't be too proud of this podcast you've constructed. The ability to rank content is insignificant next to the power of an exceptional hot take.
All right, it's the hot takes time. So, I've got one this week. I am of the belief that the bones of the sequel trilogy are really good. In fact, I think they might be some of the most impactful. They have some of the most impactful moments of the entire Skywalker saga. Obviously not executed that well, but I want to know a lot more. There's a lot of people out there who never want to see Rey again. Like, people never wanted to see Anakin. I think she's an interesting character. I would love to see her rebuild the Jedi Order. I would love to see post-sequels, what happens with Grogu and Mandalore 500 years from now. Like, there's a lot with the sequels that are interesting. I want to go back. I want to see more with Finn. I want to see more with Poe. I want to, especially, as I said, see more with Rey. I'm so interested in that. There's so much story left to tell. It's not even close to over.
Yeah.
I mean, people were so excited about this Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Imagine Rey 10 years from now really learning about where the Jedi went wrong. And Luke started all those things over again, repeated the mistakes of who came before him. And Rey hopefully
Finally
getting it right.
seeing how Luke failed and grew can
And
make
also learns how to make things right
Yeah.
herself. And
Yeah.
but makes her own mistakes, new mistakes, and who's she going to mentor that she'll also learn from. So lots of that. Who's the new Ahsoka Tano?
I want to see the Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole slew of stories from the sequels I want to see. So that's my hot take. Don't let the story be done. Keep pushing into sequel stories because they're interesting.
I agree.
I am cautious just because it's like,
If you say I need more sequels, that's definitely gonna ruffle feathers.
yeah, it's like I'm all for new Star Wars content and getting more. And if I don't like it, I'll just watch the other stuff that
Yeah.
I like. But it's like, get on the same page. If you're going to commit to another thing for expanding the sequels, get on the same page, use the same director, or like
Yeah.
just figure out the
Yeah.
end before you start it. So it's like, yeah, if they can do it well, sure, I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
And that's the interesting thing too. We're going to be seeing the Book of Boba Fett here next week, and that's a different director each episode. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, the question we have there is, will that work well?
Well,
Or-
Mandalorian did it the same way too.
Yeah, The Mandalorian did it, and some people love how each story has its own unique flavor. Other people think it feels disjointed and kind of choppy. So, like, I think we're going to be able to test that with Book of Boba Fett. Will it work? Will it not? Whereas things like Obi-Wan, we know Deborah Chow is the only director.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Disney's just at a point they're testing a lot of these waters out with these shows, figure out what works. But I'm of the same belief as you, Christian. Like, yes, there's some hesitancy there, but I think if you put Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni in a room, storyboard the whole thing out, find the right director for it, and work from there. It works so far with 2 seasons of Mandalorian.
As long as we're talking more series, I don't think movies are. I think Star Wars is at its best when it's in a show format because you're able to tell a more detailed story with the characters. Not saying that you can't in film, but with the trajectory of these stories, I think you can tell better stories and probably piss off less people.
See,
Yeah.
that's an interesting take or opinion because I'm kind of on the other camp where, like, not to take away from Clone Wars or Rebels, those are great, but I'm kind of like, don't waste my time with a mediocre show where I have to comb through a bunch of fluff to get to the meat of it. Like, just give me one good movie, like, worth my time. It's kind of more of like a worth my time now thing where it's like, I want you to give me a good story, concise, to the point. Don't drag it out and make me invest that much time into, like, digging for the good nuggets, Don't do that to me anymore.
Yeah, agreed. So you're voting up or down?
Yours?
Yeah.
Voting up, sure.
All right. I
open
can't
to
believe
it.
I got a Roger from
Yeah.
this
I'm
group.
open.
Well, any other hot takes before we keep going?
One of the best characters of this movie was C-3PO.
Oh.
Where does he rank? Where does this Duel of the Ranks? I can't agree or disagree until I know where he falls in the pecking order.
Let's say he's a top 2 or 3 in this movie.
Well, he's not above Rey. He's not above.
I think he's above Rey. He's not above Kylo Ren.
All right.
Not
disagree.
because I don't like Rey,
Disagree.
but because of how Rey was handled. Last Jedi, she's a nobody. This one, she has to be a Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? All right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here with Rey? Same thing. Like, name me another character other than Kylo that was handled better than C-3PO.
Babu Frick.
Hey!
Hey! I bubble freak. I loved it. No, I obviously have Kylo.
That's a good hot take.
It is a good hot take. I personally enjoyed a lot of characters more than C-3PO in this. I
Yeah.
enjoyed Palpatine more. I enjoyed Rey more. I enjoyed Kylo more. Okay, maybe not a lot of characters. He's number 4.
I'm not to, like, attack anyone's, like, personal enjoyment of a character. Like, I really, like, it was great seeing Billy D. Williams again. Like, you can certainly enjoy people more than C-3PO. I just think he was better. He was just better handled. Like, his continuity, his whole thing. He had an arc.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. He does have more input and weight in this story than maybe other ones, but I just really don't care for C-3PO,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
doesn't bother. Like, I don't care that he's in it more.
Which kind of gets to my point of giving a lower rank to the movie because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'm going to downvote. He's not a top 2 or 3 character for me.
same.
Okay.
I find your lack of good takes
All right.
disturbing.
Well, I guess, unless, Amanda, do you have any hot takes?
No.
All right. No feathers ruffled from Amanda in this movie. It's just bad. All right. So with that said, let's move into the last segment of the show. Forrest Goes Charlie. What time is it?
This is the way to trivia time!
All right. It is trivia time. And I've got the question of the week. When we see Kylo convert back to the light side of the Force, he's talking to a memory of his father, Han. He says something to which Han responds by saying, "I know." What does he say? Does he say, "Dad, I'm sorry"? Does he look at him and just say, "Dad"? Does he just say, "I'm sorry"? Or does he say, "Don't let them make Solo"?
You should have had that last one be "I love you." I know. Well,
I gotta make this easier.
I'm gonna say, he just says "Dad" because it broke my literal heart.
I'm gonna say. I'm trying to replay it in my mind. I don't know. Does he say, "I'm sorry"?
It is, in fact, just Dad.
Oh,
Just rips your heart out. That's even better than "I love you" in my mind.
Yeah.
He just knows what he's feeling.
That's
It's his
sad.
son.
I know.
That's sad.
I know. That's one of the best scenes in Star Wars for sure.
I mean, I know they say it's a memory, but I wish that was like a Force Ghost.
It
or
feels
something.
real.
Like, I want that to be real. I want that closure for those two.
It
But
is. It is real. It is real to Ben.
It is real to Ben. Yeah.
And it is closure.
Yeah, I don't know. Amanda, does that, as far as emotional moments go in Star Wars, we haven't reviewed this at all, but I know it's like a top one for you.
That is one of the most, I think when it comes to thinking of all of the scenes in all of Star Wars, that's got to be a top 10 moment for me because it just pulls at my heart.
Yeah.
It's emotional, undeniably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up there. But, it's not. This movie as a whole.
Yeah.
Looking at it now, we've done all of the movies. They've all been ranked. And for our listeners, you'll be able to see this on the website, but we're going to go ahead and go from the back to the front, from last to first. In 11th place for all Star Wars movies ranked, we have Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker at 62.67%. Right in front, we have Episode 1 in 10th place, The Phantom Menace at 67.87%. At number 9, we have Solo, A Star Wars Story at 68.67%. In Episode 8, we have a little bit of a jump up with Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones at 75.33%. Followed by 7th place, pretty fitting for number 7, is Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens at 78.13%. 6th place is Star Wars
Also
Episode
sixth
6, Return. We're lazy. Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi at 79.6%. And number 5, we have Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope at 81.07%. Yeah, this is a bit controversial here, but in our 4th place, we have Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, just barely beating A New Hope. Whereas A New Hope was at 81.07%.
That's impossible.
This is at 81.87%.
0.8 better.
Just barely beat it out. In 3rd place, we have the so-popular Gareth Edwards film, Rogue One,
Yeah.
A Star Wars Story, finally breaking into the A's,
Nice.
A's percentage. We have at Rogue One at a 90.27%, followed by number 2, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith at 93.2%, and just barely beating it at 0.4% better. We have Star Wars Episode 5, aka its original title, The Empire Strikes Back, at 93.6%. What a list.
What
It
a
is-
wholesome list.
I feel pretty good about that list.
Yeah.
I do too.
We've got our reasons.
Yeah.
And
I
if
think
you
we all argued it pretty well.
argued it pretty well. I think these are sound, these are sound results. I feel
Yeah.
like for
Yeah,
everything.
Not pull out of thin air. There's a reason.
If you've listened to it at this point, you agree with us, let us know. If you disagree with us, let us know. Amanda, where can people do that? How can people get in touch with us? How can people let us know their hot takes and all the things they agree and disagree?
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're pretty active on there. You can also check out dueloftheranks.com, where you can read our blog and check out our rankings from the past and submit your own hot takes. We would love to read them on air and let us know what you agree with or disagree with, and we'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
Yeah, we will.
Maybe. We do have some hot takes for backfilling we got to actually get to at some point, but we're going to get to them. But there's so much content coming out. I'm so excited.
Be grateful, people.
Yeah.
So much fun. We got a lot of fun things coming up. You've been listening to the podcast version of this. We've got a lot more in store there. If you watch the YouTube version of all these things, we're going to be doing a whole lot of cool stuff there as well. We're going to be continuing to bring guests on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm so stoked to just keep ranking, keep reviewing, keep this show going, and find out really what is the best piece of Star Wars content out there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. For all you listeners, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. See you then.